So just how do you kill a god? Well, as we just found out, it usually takes a god to kill a god. Hi, I'm Marc Snetiker of Entertainment Weekly, and I am joined once again by Orlando Jones, who plays the trickster spider god, Mr. Nancy.
Now, if you haven't seen the latest episode of American Gods and you don't want to know what happened, look away now. We're about to throw some major spoilers.
The following program.
Modern style.
So, to help us break down Episode 6, A Murder of Gods, we've enlisted the incomparable Ian McShane, who plays Mr. Wednesday, Vulcan himself, the incredible Corbin Bernsen, as well as executive producers Michael Green and Brian Fuller. Guys, let's get into it.
Gracias. ¿Cómo tu nombre?
Tú ya conoces mi nombre.
That is probably our timeliest Coming to America we've seen so far, or at least most recent, let's say. What was the genesis of that?
Well, originally it was going to be Aliens.
Yeah, we talked about that, but then we were, I think it was when we were watching the scene from episode 3 performed where Wednesday's in the copy shop and he's talking about the different Jesuses in America. Well, you got your Mexican Jesus, you got your this Jesus, you got your that Jesus. And it's taken as glib Wednesday patter, but we're like, oh no, we got very serious about it. And we started imagining what he would be like coming to America. But we did have something, I don't want to tell the aliens.
No, because we're going to do it in
still
season
gonna
2.
do it.
But for, being raised Catholic and having great respect for Jesus Christ as a teacher, it was hard not to have an emotional experience for these people seeing their God for the first time walking on water, and a God that is very common in our vocabulary as Americans. So it felt not risky, but tantalizing, as well as deeply spiritual. Like my eyes burned when I saw Jesus walking across the water and everybody looking up, because I thought, like, what would it be like if I witnessed that as somebody who went to Catholic school and all of a sudden had this manifestation of the Lord walking on water. And it felt like we were celebrating what so many people love about religion and the beauty of Christ's teachings, which have been lost on a large section of America who feel like if they put conservative in front of Christian, they're still Christian, but that is a fallacy and betrays a total lack of understanding of what Christianity is. And so for Christ to be brought down by people with guns with crucifixes on them felt like we were addressing hypocrisy.
Brian, Michael, tell me a little bit about the genesis of what you wanted to accomplish with Wednesday coming to meet Vulcan. It's certainly a world we haven't seen before.
Well, the genesis of the Vulcan character came from Neil's trip through Alabama, and as he was passing through Vulcan, Alabama, he noticed that there was a massive statue to the god Vulcan there, and there also happened to be an industry there that had faulty railings, and a couple times a year, employees of that forge would fall through the railings and die, and he thought that was as grand a sacrifice to the god Vulcan as possible. So we started talking about what does Vulcan represent in modern America, and he is the god of the volcano and the god of the forge, so it felt like an organic extension to make him the god of guns, in a sense, because a gun is a volcano that you can hold in your hand.
I also like the idea of Wednesday in a moment of, oh shit, goes to an old friend where he thinks, okay, maybe I'll be safe here, but he's Wednesday, so he's not going to rely on anything.
Sure.
We talked a lot about The Empire Strikes Back for this episode. And Corbin is Lando Calrissian.
Here we go again. The Empire Strikes Back. That's what we need. The Undead Empire. That'd be good, though.
I'd watch that movie.
You'd watch it.
Now, I want to get a little bit into the characters just a little bit, because one of the big words I think of this episode is the word sacrifice. And I think it means something very different for Wednesday versus Vulcan. I want to know your take a little bit about what that word means to each of these guys.
You know, we come from the old world, the old gods, and I've found a way to bridge that world with this world with something new, relevant. I take the volcano, put power in the palm of the people's hands, and they sacrifice themselves. That to me, it's it's not ego, it's commitment, you know, and it fuels this guy. It says, I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to keep going, you know, and it's for the good of all of us. So I see it as fuel. Sacrifice is fuel. Having power in the palm of your hand, you know.
Oh, we're going to talk about guns now, aren't we?
Funeral? Less a funeral than a celebration of sacrifice. If I know my friend, someone got tossed into the volcano.
Was it important to you to have a stance or not have a stance, or sort of just present what Vulcan represents and let the audience kind of go from there in terms of filling in those gaps?
We started with just wanting to talk about it. I mean, guns have a thing where they make the people holding them feel right. And we don't know who's right, but we feel like it's a conversation that needs to be had. The idea of a town that was sort of its own little bubble, this own little Stepford world, where one particular god had made people felt secure. I mean, we use some hot button words that seem to either make people feel very, very upset or very, very comfortable.
Sure.
Of insularity, of homogeneity, of being armed, and I don't know. We did go into it hoping to present two sides of a debate, but the world shifted so radically from the time we wrote that, shot that, and then when it's finally being aired, that I don't think there's any chance of us showing a fair hand.
No,
and I
it's
think
pretty biased.
we stopped trying. I mean, it's also when we saw the footage we had and seeing Corbin Bernsen talking to the people there and the looks they gave him, it was reminiscent of certain rallies we see trumped up around our country. Yeah,
Sure.
I made a pun.
Certain
It's my first pun. I didn't like it. I'm not going to do it again.
He got a visit from the Easter punny.
Oh, goodness
So
gracious.
I am a lifetime member of the NRA. I grew up in the deep South, where guns mean very different things to different people. When I say that, people look at me like I'm crazy, like, how could you be an NRA member? But it takes on such different meaning because, you know, my father carried a gun. It was far more dangerous times and saw it in a very different way. And what I loved about what you did with it in the character is I understand how these things get compartmentalized, but I always reminded that everybody has a racist, a sexist, a homophobe in their family,
Right.
and nobody ever wants their racist or sexist or homophobe to die.
Or to have a gun.
Or to But I always feel like we're people, you know what I mean? And we forget that the bridges we're trying to build are often bridges with people who are in our own midst. Like we don't want bad to happen. We want conversation to happen so we can figure out how to live together rather than tear each other apart.
I just think we're all a bunch of idiots running around for definition. That's I'll tell you. What the hell is all this stuff? It gets right into what the series is. Gods, you know, what we look up to, what we pray to. You put a gun in your hand, something like a gun. It's definition. It's secure. It's not power. It is power, but it's also some control in this sea of insanity that we all live in. And I think, as Vulcan, he said, I'm going to put that back in the people's hands. I'm not giving him power. I'm not some kind of racist or it's not any of that. It's here. I'm going to give you definition the way we do with religion today, as you're talking about, when you put conservative in front of it. You know, you just put this definition to things, and I think that's what for me that's what the gun does. It just says, therefore, I understand.
It's a conversation you guys hope people might have when they're watching this episode?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, my oldest brother is a gun dealer, and I grew up in gun culture as well, and so I don't see it as villainy as much as it is a lack of communication between two parties that have differing approaches on the subject matter. And I asked my brother, there's all these arguments between pro-gun and anti-gun. What is the conversation? Like, what would make this legislation easier for you as a gun owner and a gun seller to digest? And he was like, you just have to change this one word here, and then we will be fine with it. But the lobbyists don't want any words changed.
Exactly.
And the Democrats and the leftists who are attacking gun laws don't know to go after that one word because they're not stopping and listening to the real gun owners as opposed to the lobbyists and the NRA, which are misrepresenting a lot of their members. So we welcome the conversation, because if you're assuming that we're vilifying gun owners and gun culture, you're not entirely wrong, but you're not entirely right.
And we went into this episode specifically, but also the series. We don't think any of the characters are bad guys or good guys. Vulcan, Wednesday. Everyone has a point. It's all about how they're using their power at the moment that can be judged. But none of them have an incorrect opinion. They just have divergent opinions.
Also, we're not making a documentary or a polemic or an op-ed.
Right.
We're making a television program which has something to say, but at the same time has to pique you, dig you, rather than a normal conversation in some kind of way, to make you think about it.
Yeah.
Those things that make us all a little more emotional and better in life.
Thank you for talking so candidly. Like most of the
Yeah.
time, as you know, people
Yes.
people walk away from those opinions. So it's exciting to hear people say what they feel and to put it into action the way you
Yeah.
have. So that wraps us up.
A big thank you to the fantastic Ian McShane, Corbin Bernsen, Michael Green, Brian Fuller. Join Orlando and myself next time as we break down Episode 7, A Prayer for Mad Sweeney. We'll see you then.